Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here. Now, do you sometimes find that when using wonderful whipped cream for a filling or a frosting, it doesn't end up fluffy and light and airy like this version I have here, but instead turns out deflated and even starts to weep on you as you store it in the refrigerator? Well, today I'm going to share with you a really easy trick in keeping your whipped cream nice and stable and weep-free. So let me show you how. All right, to start off, one thing that's really super important in making whipped cream at home, whether you're stabilizing it or not, is in making sure that your ingredients are chilled and also your equipment is chilled. So in front of me here, I'm using a stand mixer today because I'm using a decent quantity of cream to whip, 2 cups in total. I'm using a stand mixer and the bowl is really well chilled. It's actually been in the freezer for a little bit, and so is the whisk attachment to the stand mixer as well. Really cold equipment will help create a nice skeleton, I'll call it that, to your whipped cream. The skeleton is the little bubbles that form, and if they're nice and cold and rigid, you'll have good volume and buildup. But if they're warm, they're not going to be stable for very long. You won't get as much lightness and volume out of them. So make sure that your equipment and your ingredients are cold. Now, this is whipping cream here, and you want to make sure that the cream that you're using is the highest fat content possible. And heavy whipping cream is 33 to 35% fat. So high fat is great for whipped cream. I'm going to add this to my bowl here, and I'm going to start the mixer on a lower speed. Now, whenever you're making whipped cream, or even if you're making a meringue, it's best to start on a lower speed to encourage smaller bubbles to form. And then you'll build up the speed and continue to build up those small bubbles, creating something that's a little bit more stable. And while we're mixing this on low speed, I'm going to add a little bit of sweetener. And I'm using 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar for 2 cups of heavy whipping cream here. Now, this is really going to depend on your recipe, how sweet you want your cream. You might want more sugar, you might want less. I'm doing something that's just slightly sweet as a topping for a pie. And I'm using granulated sugar because one thing in testing out different methods of stabilizing the whipped cream, a lot of sources say to use confectioner sugar, and confectioner sugar has a little bit of cornstarch, an anti-caking ingredient that keeps it nice and lump-free. And most people say that the cornstarch in there helps to stabilize the whipped cream, but in testing it out, it really had no effect for us. So I'm just using regular granulated sugar. Now, the real star player here in keeping this whipped cream nice and stable is gelatin. And I'm using a ½ teaspoon of powdered gelatin here. And this is something that you can get in the grocery store. You don't need to go to a specialty store for this. And a tablespoon of cold water. And I'm just gonna sprinkle the gelatin over the top of the water. And this is going to sit, or bloom as it's called, for about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, blooming gelatin, but really what it does is it helps the gelatin get saturated with water, and then ultimately we're gonna melt this down in the microwave. You could do it on the stovetop if you wanted to, just until the gelatin dissolves and it's a nice liquid. We don't want it too hot, guys, again, because we're trying to keep all of our ingredients cold, but really when using gelatin, it has to be in a liquid form, and the liquid form is in a melted state. So as you can see here, we're on medium-low speed. We're starting to increase the volume of the mixture a little bit, you can see. And now I'm gonna turn this up to a medium speed, and I wanna whip the sugar and the heavy cream until we get nice soft peaks. So we're almost going the full way in terms of volume development before we add our gelatin. All right, guys, checking in on our whipped cream here. We are almost at a nice silken soft peak, and let me show you what that means. You should have a peak that almost kind of tips over a little bit. It's not stiff, it's not straight up in the air. And this is the point at which we're going to add the gelatin to help stabilize the whipped cream. So at this point, I'm gonna keep the speed at medium here, and I'm gonna slowly drizzle in the gelatin mixture. And this, again, you guys, has been heated, in the microwave for a few seconds, just until it's nice and liquidy, and it's almost at room temperature. It's not hot. Make sure if it is hot, you cool it slightly before adding it to the cream. Now, gradually add this, beating it in so that it's nice and even. You can even increase the speed a little bit. And then for a little bit of flavoring, I'm gonna add some vanilla extract, and you can flavor this in any way, you guys, that you'd like. Vanilla is kind of a classic addition to whipped cream. And now I'm just going to, with a rubber spatula, fold the whipped cream together, but you can see I have nice stiff peaks here. This hasn't churned into butter. You want to make sure that you stop before the mixture looks clumpy and curdled, but is still nice and silken, like this here. You can see it's nice and lofty and delicious. Now, some other methods that might be out there, you guys, on the internet for stabilizing your whipped cream, we've tried them all, and really gelatin is the best. Now, I know that a lot of you out there look for other sources other than gelatin in a lot of recipes because it is a meat-based product, but we've tried agar-agar, we tried a cornstarch slurry mixture, and really we didn't have as much success in keeping your whipped cream nice and lofty and stable like this with very little weeping. Okay, this is the gelatin mixture. Most of the other options that we tried, whether it be confectioner's sugar, a cornstarch slurry, or even agar-agar, really deflated the whipped cream and it separated and started to weep. So unfortunately, or fortunately, gelatin seems to be the best bet when it comes to stabilizing your whipped cream. Now, if you are a gelatin fan, I would encourage you to give this a try at home for your fillings, for your frostings, whatever it might be. As always, you guys, we love the kitchen conundrums that you send our way, so reach out to us using the hashtag kitchen conundrums. And as always, guys, enjoy. And as always, guys, click like and subscribe.